Hello, welcome back to 1874. It's time for a full-time show as we look back on Leipzig 2, Aston Villa 3 in the Champions League. Sixth game, two more to go. Villa set in a very nice position in the Champions League table. I'm your host, Dan Bardell, joined by the Athletics' Jacob Tanswell, who was at the game to look back on said game. This show is sponsored by Luke Roper. To get 20% off, use the code TVV20 and you'll get 20% off everything they have to offer. Just in time for Christmas, a tidy little discount. Jacob, and first of all, I should apologise to the general public that watch 1874 and wait for the shows. I was away at the start of the week. I got back from Lapland last night, so I did watch the game, but haven't had a chance to do a podcast or do a show until now. I've been buzzing to do it, been waiting to do it, so done it as soon as I can on the Thursday morning. Jacob, of course, was at the game, has had to travel back as well, so we're going to talk about the game. And Jacob, it must have been incredible to be there. It is my favourite game of the season. I thought Villa played some lovely football. Look back to our brilliant best. Still some question marks at the back, but overall it was just a lovely watch. It was a brilliant display from Villa away in the Champions League. Tough place to go, Leipzig. Just absolutely brilliant.
I agree. I think Villa were at their most comfortable, really. I thought from a structural, tactical point of view, it felt like Villa had overloads and they were comfortable in every area of the pitch. Of course, we'll go on to the individual areas, but as I say, from a tactical standpoint, everything looked good. Sometimes in games you think, if you play a system, it'll give you an advantage in this area of the pitch, but it'll give you a disadvantage in this area. But I just felt Villa, even from the outset, as soon as you pick up on the changes system, it just looked completely, calm, and they were really cerebral. The performance was fantastic. I thought the way they passed the ball is with purpose, and I thought, we'll come into Leipzig. I thought Leipzig actually allowed Villa to use a lot of their best strengths, but from a tactical setup, from an approach, and from players' performances, I thought it was a really good performance, and it was a fantastic stadium, big occasion, and immediately Villa were controlling things, and the atmosphere faltered as a result of it.
Yes, IAVFC is right to point out two brilliant games for Villa that day. The under-19s as well, qualifying after winning 4-3 earlier in the day, scoring two in stoppage time. A composed penalty from Ben Broggio right at the death there to send Villa through to the next phase. I was, as I said, in Lapland watching on my phone, which, to be honest, I was just grateful that I was able to watch it and catch the game live. It was 10 o'clock in Lapland. They're a couple of hours ahead. You were obviously at the game. You've got a better view of what's going on than me trying to watch on my phone. Tactically, was it a different system, or was it the normal kind of 4-4-1-1, but Cash was playing right mid and dropping back in to make a back five when we were defending? Or would you say this was the first change Emery's ever done and he changed the system and Cash was actually a wing back?
Do you know what? I would have just said it was Cash replicating Bailey, but for the first 2 or 3 minutes, I was completely just focused on his positioning. And there's a point in the game when the ball was on the other side with Luca Dean, and Villa were quite high. And usually Bailey would be just a little bit tucked inside, where this time Cash was so high and so wide, and Konsa was actually pushing on to be like almost a right back, a right side centre back, that I thought actually this does look like a back three with two high wing backs. And then if you look at the average position maps afterwards, it shows that, because Konsa was a back, a right side centre back for the whole game. He didn't receive the ball out wide once, which shows he wasn't playing as a right back this time. He was playing as a right side centre back. And it looked really good. And the reason why that basically Emery told Luca Dean and Cash just to hold their feet on the width of the touchline is because Leipzig was so narrow in their 4-2-2-2 shape that they always play, all Red Bull teams play, that Village kept killing them down the sides. And Leipzig, every time they try and press, they're one of the best pressing teams in the Champions League apparently. Every time they try and press, Villa just kept switching the ball to the other side, and that was such a key way of just dragging them out of shape, dragging their back four across the side of the pitch. And whereas with Leon Bailey, a lot of the time he sometimes cuts inside. Cash was just there, just to hold the width, holds the right hand side, and Villa were absolutely fantastic. And yeah, as soon as I saw there's a little tweak in shape, even Emery agreed afterwards that there was a little change. I thought it was really good.
Does that solve a problem in the kind of short term, maybe medium to long term as well for Villa? Because we're becoming not a little bit predictable. I don't want to say that. Maybe a little bit stale, that system. Teams have had kind of two and a half years or 2 years to to work that system out now and work out how Villa want to play. I thought
Yeah.
the freshness of changing the system up really helped
Yeah.
us, and it was more like the Villa of old that we've associated with them, that maybe we haven't seen as much this season, if at all.
Yeah.
This season, it just solves a lot of problems, especially whilst Bailey's out as well, and gets people kind of playing in their better positions. It solves the problem of basically you haven't got a senior right winger without Leon Bailey. It enables Cash to do his best work at right wing back. And although we let in two kind of softish goals, well, the first one was definitely soft. Second one was actually an unbelievable finish that we'll come on to. But it did make us a little bit resolute. It wasn't like Leipzig had loads of chances. The first one was just a freak, and the second one's a really good goal. But overall, I just felt that system just suited us and suits us at the moment.
Yeah, I think, I said on this podcast a few weeks ago that you don't have, just because you change the formation doesn't mean you overhaul and throw out all the principles of play. And that's why I thought maybe Villa could do some variation. Maybe, I thought it might be the right back pushing high and the left back tucking in. Things like just some little tweak that could just keep it a bit fresh. And I think Emery's really noticed in the last few weeks that he's had to improve Villa's freshness and not become too fatigued from a mental standpoint, physical standpoint as well, changing certain ways of him coaching and the system. But I think the way you play with this system, it is a horses for courses approach. Some teams, it will look better against. Some other teams, it won't. I think Leipzig was the perfect team to trial it against because, as they say in the comments, and as I alluded to, Leipzig are so narrow. And, I've seen it with Southampton when I was covering, and Ralph Hasenhüttl was, it used to be Leipzig manager, used that system at Southampton. The downsides of that system are they're so narrow defensively and in possession that they can get outdone by just simply going around, and they're always underloaded around the side. So Villa really used the wide areas to their absolute advantage in the first half, and that worked on that occasion. But there'll be another game, maybe it'll be Forest or maybe other games where they won't play in that system, they won't have that defensive structure, and it won't be as effective. But I think if you want to get Tyrone Mings, Pau Torres in, and the number 10s and a double pivot, their roles doesn't change. It's basically in the same areas. If anything, McGinn, for example, being able to actually get inside the pitch even more in this system, it doesn't affect them too much. But I think it's a really good system, but you probably have to pick your moments to play it, if that makes sense.
But it's nice to have kind of two systems to choose from. I think that makes Villa harder to predict. It makes opposition in the week leading up to a game, it's harder to predict what Villa will do if they flip between the two systems for certain games. I'm really excited by it. I think it's something that we've needed, that little bit of freshness, because like I said earlier, I think we'd become a little bit predictable, and actually we'd caused Leipzig the kind of problems that we've had defensively this season at ourselves. I felt the way we were coming forward and causing them problems was the kind of situations Villa have been caught out in themselves this season. And, you mentioned McGinn couldn't have got off to a better start with the goal. He's been playing mainly from the left. And obviously, we know in that system on the ball, he'll invert and become a kind of left number 10. But I felt just in that system, him playing as just because he didn't have to go and do a lot of defending out wide or spend much time out wide because of the system Villa were playing. I felt being a more narrow number 10 really suited him, and having Rodgers close to him as well as the other number 10.
Yeah, I agree. And, he's not actually having to come in off the left. He's already there in that position already. So it makes sense. He can be in there more regularly. I will say the caveat is Leipzig did allow a lot of space between the lines and quite narrow. So they were, allowing McGinn and Rodgers and Watkins' best strength in that first half. But like you said, it just looks better for McGinn at this present moment in time. It's similar to Ruben Amorim's shape at Sporting Lisbon and what he's trying to do at Man United, really. He wants these two 10s flanking, a quick number 9. And I think with McGinn and Rodgers, that really suited them. I actually think McGinn's been improved in the last 2-3 games. Actually, I think he's getting back to his best. And that finished, I would have probably just leathered it and it probably would have gone over. So it was a really quite a controlled finish from McGinn and a great start for Villa.
Yeah, I just think I'm obsessed with the system. Obviously, all I'm asking you about here is the system. So I've got a bit of an obsession with it. I have always liked three at the back. Obviously, I grew up with it with Brian Little and John Gregory. So I've always been a fan of the system. If I could just name players that it just seemed to suit for that game. Pau Torres had his best game of the season and got so much of the ball, and it enabled him to get so much more of the ball as well. Kamara was brilliant in there. Tielemans looked better than he has done over the last month or so. I've just mentioned McGinn. I thought Rodgers, his final product's been letting him down a little bit, but he's still lively, always involved in the game. And the two strikers felt more involved as well. I felt like there was more happening for them because we were making more happen because that systematic Cash as well. I think Cash has been good this season. I think it's low key gone under the radar a little bit, but I think every time Cash has played this season, and he's obviously had injuries, I think he's been really, really good. So I just think for that system, there's a lot of upside to it because for the players individually, it just seems to suit so many.
Yeah, we could get into so much geeky detail, and I'll probably write my match piece after the Forest game on it. But it, like you say, it suits a lot of the players. And what's good is that it's a back three, system on paper, and we all were talking about it. But it's quite a sliding formation. So, depending where their ball is on the pitch, you might see Pau Torres at left back, for example, Diego Carlos next to him, and then Kamara can slide in to become a centre back, and then you can push Konza on at the other side, and then all of a sudden become a back four, and then it'll become a back three. It's really rotational. It's very fluid. I do think there are downsides to back three, and that's why a lot of the bigger teams don't play that on paper. But if you see it, most teams nowadays, when they're in possession, they build in a back three. So it looks like that. But the way Villa were playing the other night, I just felt it was more pronounced of a wing-back system. I think it's a really good problem to have. It shows a good adaptation. And like you say, I think his best strengths are basically being like a right winger position. And obviously, he hasn't been able to do that in recent years because he's been a bit more conservative, tucking in as a back in the back three. But it suits him, and I think that's what he wants to do as a right back. And when you saw the best of him at Nottingham Forest and some of the goal contributions he's involved in, he was getting into those areas. So I think he's been solid. He's never going to get the plaudits or the major headlines, but he's so important to this system. And as Emery said, he is the best option they've got there, and he keeps doing very well. And it's a great cross with his left foot for the first goal.
Yeah, it was a good goal. That it was very, very well worked. It's good to see Watkins getting assists because I feel like last season when he wasn't scoring as many, he was chipping in with assists, and it feels like that hasn't been there for whatever reason this season. So it was great to see him getting assists from McGinn. And you're right, he could have lashed at it, but it was a very composed finish from John McGinn, more like the kind of goal we see him score for Scotland. Actually, that was. It reminded me of quite a few of his goals that he scored for Scotland over the last few years. We have to talk about the equaliser. I mean, I've got no right to criticise Emi Martinez at all. Best goalkeeper in the world. Very, very rarely lets Villa down. He probably makes one mistake a season on average. That was probably the mistake, wasn't it? I mean, he lost his bearings. He didn't know Openda was there. It was just a calamitous goal. But this seems to be what we do in the Champions League. We've been brilliant. But if we're going to concede a goal, it's probably going to be a clown car goal.
Yeah. I tweeted us about 5 minutes after Villa went 1-0 up. It was so obvious for anyone watching, really, given how Villa were playing and the system just completely dominating Leipzig in every area of the pitch, that Villa could only concede through their own sloppiness. And my God, that encapsulated all sorts of concentration lapses. It was not great initially. I think Carlos gets stuck on the ball. Konza doesn't tuck around, but you can't really blame Konza too much. He then hesitates, and that's why you just need Martinez just to come out and take everything and just sweep like he was doing fantastically last year. And he just hesitates, and he's been quite cautious. And I've actually, before the game, I was looking at his sweeping regularity this season, because from the eye test, it looks like he's not doing as much. And the stats certainly back that up. Last year, he was in the top 1% of goalkeepers for actions outside his box. Now he's in the top 15%. So he's still good, but he's not as much as he was last year. And that's probably the time where you need him just to sweep. And he was hesitant then. And then the second goal they score, he was hesitant again. And you don't associate hesitancy with Emi Martinez, do you? But it's one of those goals that was just a freak. And you can have all the systems, all the planning, all the analysis in the world, but a simple goal like that still remains in football, which is quite good to hear. That good to know.
Emery must have been absolutely devastated because what the game plan he formulated was going so well. We've gone 1-0 up literally with the first attack. Things are looking brilliant, and then to concede a goal like that, he must have just been tearing his hair out. Unai Emery. I think this is a valid point here that someone's just said in the chat. I'm going to absolutely muller the name. Kitula Farm? No, that's not right. Is it Kiltula Farm? Is that right? I mean, this is a real farm. Is it a real farm? Can I visit? I do like my animals. I'd like to visit the farm if it is a real farm. It's just every time Villa conceded, the players didn't let it affect them, and you could sense they had total belief that they'd go and score another. I think that's right, because actually when we've conceded, even kind of games gone by this season, we've looked a little bit shaky for a period afterwards. That didn't happen. We just carried on attacking, carried on with the game plan. Obviously, Watkins had a goal disallowed, but we still. We looked like we were going to score every time we went forward, and we were making so much happen and playing some lovely football. So it's good mentally that the goal didn't really curtail Villa at all.
Yeah, what I will say that is when Villa do concede, the other team obviously got their backs up and they're ready to go and press Villa, and Villa have struggled playing against teams that press. Leipzig have tried to do that, but because of the system, it meant Villa always had that out ball around the back, so they could kind of steady themselves in the first 2 or 3 minutes after conceding by just keeping the ball. And they always knew there was always a switch of play on, and they never really got into any danger, because you've seen this season when Villa do go behind, then it tends to have a real big knock-on effect in terms of players' decision-making. They'll lose the ball in an area, and then it'll get the crowd going again, and they might concede a second one, where this time Villa could just keep the ball because they knew they had superiority around the back, keep the ball, evade Leipzig's press, and then just grow into the game again. And I thought both times they reacted really well to obviously being pegged back. And like you say, what I will say, the comments are showing it, is when you have Boubacar Kamara in there, he's just, and Yuri Tillemans, them two can just take the sting out of games anyway. So hopefully going forwards, that will help players' reactions after goals conceded.
Yeah, I knew Kamara was important, and I was desperate to get him back, but I think he's got up to speed really, really fast. So he's probably not even at his best level at the moment, but you can't even really tell. He's just been absolutely brilliant. Looks like he's never been away. I think every time he's come back from an injury, actually, and he's had a few, he's always looked sharp straight away, which is testament to him and testament to his rehab at Villa as well. But he just looks brilliant straight away, and such a key component in this side. Had a couple of 90 minutes now, which will do him good. Yeah. So AVFC saying here, and we kind of covered it in the last show, we need to get Booba a new contract. I'm sure that must be on the agenda pretty soon for those high up at Villa. Let's just talk about Ollie Watkins and John Duran then, because I thought Watkins was really good in the first half. Stretched him, had a goal disallowed. His movement, he just never stopped moving. They said on the commentary at one point, he's made 3 runs there in about 20 seconds and not got the ball, but he's just always on the move, always trying to stretch defences and do selfless work for the team, was dropping in, holding up the ball. I thought Watkins was really good in the first half. He's ended up coming off at half-time with a slight knock, and on comes John Duran. Felt inevitable that he'd score, and, as soon as he's on the pitch in that second half, it did just feel like he was going to do something special. You just kind of got that vibe from him, the way he was moving around the pitch, and every time he got the ball in those first few minutes in the second half. Mm-hmm. and it came. He scored again. How we got criticised actually quite heavily in the comments in the last show we did before I went away, looking back at the Southampton game, for saying, Watkins has to start. Watkins is Villa's best striker. He does so much for the team. Not Diarby, I don't know where I got that from. Duran isn't really doing all the things that Watkins does, but then he comes on and he is just a live wire. But I always think it's so hard to start him, because in so many games he has been so good off the bench. It's won so many games. It's almost difficult to change that dynamic. But I also get that, what more can he do?
Yeah, I completely agree. It was funny. I was reading the comments back, and everyone's another opinion. And then obviously I write a piece after the Leipzig game on the Watkins Duran and how both, the personalities and whether they can coexist for the same period of time. And a lot of the comments were actually in favour of Watkins and in favour of what we were talking about. So it's amazing how different platforms have different opinions. But no, I agree. Obviously the opinion hasn't changed.
You love Duran as well. You've been very complimentary
I do love
over the last 12 months.
But it's a bit like chocolate to me. I like Duran, but I don't want too much of it. I just want him in short bursts, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and that's perfect. But I think he's an excellent player. But Watkins, I thought, was one of his best halves in terms of movement. Gertruder, he absolutely tore him apart. I noticed that he was playing right side centre back initially. Gertruder, a few diagonal passes from Tillemans, Watkins got on the end of. He was making those channel runs like he usually does against Gertruder. And then midway through the first half, Gertruder just swapped. He went into the left side centre back, and I thought it should be the other way around. The striker should be getting away from the centre back, not the other way around. And Watkins just followed that side. I thought he gave him an absolute hell and was fantastic, great movement. It's just such a shame that he obviously had that little niggle, which meant he had to go off at half time. But like I say, Duran came on. He's getting better. He's learning build up. He's learning to listen to teammates, listen to his manager during games as well. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And I think there is a real point to say, let's enjoy both of them while we can. But the piece that I wrote was about it's not going to be a long-term solution. At some point, something's got to give. Both players want to start games. They both want to be the main guys. So at some point, there will be decisions to have to be made. And that's just the simple fact of the matter. But right now, that game was just a perfect illustration of how you can use both to their absolute strengths. Watkins' this intelligent movement in the first half where Villa were at their best as a structure. And then the second half when you need a bit of unpredictability, and you need a crash bang wallop. And there's Duran. I do think the goalkeeping on reflection was really poor for his goal, but
It's one of those FIFA goals that you curl
doesn't
it and it
dive,
goes
does
on a
he?
minute and you're questioning your goalkeeper and you're saying this game's so unrealistic, the keeper letting that in. It was a very FIFA goal for
He
me.
doesn't dive. He doesn't stretch back and forth. He just stands there. He has a little pencil jump and it just goes over him. But yeah, how many players would have shot then? I think it was really good. And Duran keeps getting better. His all round game gets better, and I think there'll be a decision have to be made in the summer or maybe if you're lucky a year after that. But right now it suits perfectly Villa down to the ground.
Does the potential option of a 3 at the back system, does that make it easier to play 2 up front at some point and start with them? Is that something
Yeah.
that could I think it probably does.
So the way it goes, you just have like a triangle, for example. The 2 bottom points are the 10s at the moment, then the top is obviously the 9. All you've really got to do in that system is just flick the triangle around, really. So you have 1 10 and then 2 split strikers. Of course, that might need a bit of learning because it requires the 2 strikers just to hold their position, not go all across the front line as the lone 9. But you can. I think it's probably more simple way of doing it because nothing changes apart from the triangle being flipped over, like I say. But I think it can happen, and it's one of those things that you can see happening in games where you might start McGinn and Rodgers behind Watkins, and then you bring Duran on for McGinn or something, and then you can go the 2 strikers. I think it's a really good formation, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it. Hopefully, and if Watkins and Duran can click, then everyone will be happy, won't they?
Yeah, what a problem to have.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always said it's really hard to buy a striker and have another striker when you know Ollie Watkins is going to play, but it's like we're managing it pretty well as well as you can. It is difficult, and there probably is games here and there where you think, oh, I'm not sure this is going to work because they both want to play, and they both probably want to play 90 minutes as well. But when you see Watkins playing the first half and Duran playing the second half against Leipzig, and you win the game, you think this is absolutely fantastic. This is absolutely brilliant. Duran did score again. It was disallowed. So tight. I mean, these are the margins in football. Sometimes it's ruled out for offside, and it couldn't be any tighter. Shout out for great work by Matty Cash again down the right hand side, and then like a minute later they equalise, and their offside is so tight, but it goes the other way. But I gotta say, it's a hell of a finish. God, what a goal that was! I thought.
Yeah, brilliant goal, and I think it started from Duran just giving the ball away, which can happen up front, and then it's within 2 passes. Obviously, Villa are caught out. I don't know why they're caught out like that because they've still got 3 centre backs behind the ball. But Martinez hesitates. He does a hokey cokey about 3 or 4 times whether he's going to come. He decides to stay where he is, which is fine. And then Villa don't really track back. It felt like the only place it could go is to Openda. But the ball still manages to find him, and the finish, or to Baumgartner, sorry, the finish was sensational, wasn't it? Absolutely fantastic.
What a goal! Love those kind of goals. Not when they're against Villa particular, but I can look back now and we've won the game and say what a brilliant goal. And you then did start to get a little bit concerned because I don't think Leipzig were ever on top, but at 2-2, the game's finally balanced. You start to think, actually, is a draw a terrible result here? Probably not, but they needed to win as well, Leipzig. So they're always going to pile bodies forward. We've kind of finally seen some jeopardy in this format in the Champions League. I'm all for the format. I've really enjoyed it, but you'll start to see some jeopardy now because teams need wins who haven't got enough points or accrued enough points so far at this stage. Villa made changes, and Duran the sub scored. It just shows how important substitutions are, especially in the modern day when you can make 5 subs are getting more minutes, probably stereotypically, than they would have done before the 5 sub rule came in. So it's in terms of squad rotation and keeping your squad happy, I think it's a positive thing to have 5 subs, and we're now obviously operating at the top tier of European football as well. Barkley, I said this a few weeks ago when we were on a bad run. There was a few games he was injured and we didn't have him to bring on. Duran is undoubtedly his goals have turned games for Villa coming off the bench. But I do think there's a number of games Ross Barkley has come on and really helped stem the flow, get Villa moving the ball in the right way. And he's been brilliant when he's come off the bench pretty much every time, although he has had a couple of bad cameos recently where he's come on and he couldn't do anything right. He came on 10 minutes or so left. Obviously, it's took a huge deflection. But Barkley's been a really important player for Villa so far this season. We're talking about competition up front. And Arna's come back, hasn't got on the pitch yet. Barkley couldn't have done much more to get in the team. Tielemans and Kamara are brilliant. And when the 4 are fit, That's again a really nice problem to have.
I don't think Barkley's got enough praise really from
I
broader.
think he's brilliant.
I think he's arguably been. I'm just trying to think. He's arguably been Villa's best summer signing so far. I think the impact he's made has been absolutely fantastic. Goals he's had, he's created. He's a real big threat from corners as well. That little front post run. I just think he's fantastic. And whenever he comes on, Emery's always screaming at him because he knows that he's so important to controlling games towards the end of them. I just think goals he scores, he contributes. He's so much defensively sounder, isn't he, than he was when he first joined Villa a couple of years back. He's changed his game. He's intelligent, press resistant. I really think he's a really good player, and I do think he should start more games. Maybe that's a case of moving Tielemans further ahead, like we keep saying. But what a signing he's been for such little money as well. Really good impact.
Really, really, really like. I've always been a fan of him as a player. I remember being really excited when we signed him the first time round on loan. It just didn't quite happen for him after injury. He couldn't get going again, and he's undoubtedly, has he fulfilled his potential? Probably not, given how highly he was rated when he was at Everton as a youngster. But he just feels such a mature midfield player now for Villa, someone to come on in games and someone to start games here and there, kind of knows his role as well and isn't going to kick up a stink. I think for £5 million, you cannot argue with that bit of business at all.
Good leader.
Player Emery really wanted.
Yeah, good leader as well. Good experience. He's played in big games. Knows he can come in on all situations. When you're chasing the goal, he can come on. He can play a role. When you need to control a game, obviously he didn't do it against Bournemouth very well, but most of the time he can do it very well. I thought it was a really good performance. But like you say, I would have been so disappointed if Villa didn't win that game. I would have seen it as 2 points dropped. I know a point's okay, but really Villa should have won that 9 times out of 10, given their superiority. And I think Leipzig fans knew it as well. Very quiet inside the stadium. Like the comment says from Sai, a lot of empty seats as well. A lot of Villa fans around me in the home end, which was good to hear the Brummie accent. But yeah, Villa deserved that bit of luck towards the end.
Yeah, Barkley's 3 goals now as well with limited starts. 2 of them have come off the bench, I think, and scored the winner in the Champions League. He must be absolutely delighted with that. It's the time of the show where we whirl up the Adam Bates computer and see, will the Champions League table come up? And if it does come up, will it be correct? There it is, Jacob, actually quite quick on this occasion. So Villa now 5th, obviously in the top 8. It's difficult to say we're cemented in the top 8 because this league table is hard to judge because it does look very, very congested in there. We were 3rd, obviously, off the back of the Leipzig game, and we've now dropped down to 5th after games last night. People are saying, Jacob, smarter people than me, that one more win for Villa across these next 2 games will do it. Is that true? You're smarter than me as well. Is that true?
I'd hope so. I think if we want to go for someone far more smarter than any of us, Emery said 16 points would do it. So let's go for 16 points. I think that'd be a really good. I think you're all but secure there, and that'd be great, wouldn't it? If you beat Monaco, get that, and then you could have a lovely, careless royal dust up with Celtic after that. I think 16 points would be great, and what an achievement as well to get in the top 8 if Villa can do it in their first Champions League campaign. I think that would be absolutely outstanding. And although the league form you could say has been mixed, my word, they've taken to Champions League fantastically well.
I mean, Monaco's a tough game. I think I could see us really going there and getting a draw. Yeah, I kind of like there to be some jeopardy on that last Celtic game.
Really?
England v Scotland. I'd bloody love to beat them. I would, Jacob. Bloody love to. I'd like there to be some jeopardy going into that last game.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'd rather just get it wrapped up. Okay. We can all have a lovely time.
Yeah, look, obviously, I'd rather definitely qualify in the top 8, but it would be good if there was some jeopardy. It would be exciting at Villa Park.
Right, let's say Villa lose to Monaco. I'll remind you of this comment before the Celtic game, okay, when you're really nervous. But no, get that all done. We can have a lovely trip to Monaco. We can celebrate on the way back.
Game, Monaco.
And then, pardon?
Tough game, Monaco.
They are. They've got. They've revamped themselves in the last 2 years. Really, I think they're a good team. But Celtic, go in with have a great dust up with them would be fantastic, I think.
Yeah, right. I think that does us. Some brilliant interaction in the chat. So thank you very much to those that have joined us live on YouTube this morning. Again, apologies for the delay. I've done this as soon as I possibly could. If you've listened via audio, could you do the things that I go on about every single week? I'm fed up of saying it. Leave a review. Leave us a nice review, particularly on Apple Podcasts if you can. Give us 5 stars if it enables you to do that, and that would really, really help us. YouTube, usual jazz as well. Subscribe with post notifications on and leave a comment as well. Jacob will be back at some point on the show. We'll definitely do a show with Jacob next week. Could even be tomorrow. I've not checked anyone's availability, but we will be doing a match. I'll be doing a match preview tomorrow with someone ahead of the Forest game on Saturday. So watch out for that. Yeah, that's it. Hopefully everyone's got back from Leipzig safely as well. It looked like everyone had a brilliant time out in Germany. I haven't watched it yet, but go and watch Max's vlog from the Leipzig game. I'm sure it's absolutely brilliant. I've not watched it yet, but I have watched his trip to Germany. He did like a travel vlog. He's kind of the new Judith Chalmers. Max Stokes, so do go. He won't even know Judith Chalmers is. Go back and watch that, because I actually enjoyed his just general travel vlog of being in Berlin. Thought it was very, very entertaining. But yeah, watch both Max's videos from his trip to Germany as well. I'll be back tomorrow, as I said. Thank you very much to Adam Bates, who's watching live, and he got the league table working as well for a change. Didn't fancy producing, but thank you for that league table, Adam. Have a great rest of your Thursday. I'll see you all tomorrow, and let's just finish with a big up the Villa.